Good morning, folks. If you're just joining us, we're going to give others a couple more minutes to join us as well. And we will start at promptly at 8:01 in the morning. Good morning, folks. If you're just joining us, we're going to give others maybe 2 more minutes or maybe a minute to also join us. And we will start at 8:01 in the morning. Again, if you're just joining us, we're going to give others just a couple more seconds to also join us. All right, I think we are going to start. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining the Arizona Capital Times Morning Scoop on Proposition 207. Voters will get the chance to legalize recreational marijuana this November. First, I want to thank the Arizona Center for Civic Leadership at the Flynn Foundation for sponsoring today's Morning Scoop. The nonpartisan Arizona Center for Civic Leadership is committed to enhancing civic life in Arizona through civic education, leadership, and engagement programs. The Arizona Civic Exchange, or CIVEX, creates opportunities for members of the public to become better informed and educated on political and policy topics affecting their communities. The center fosters civic leaders in Arizona through the prestigious Flynn Brown Fellowship to build knowledge, skills, and a robust network to find solutions for Arizona's long-term issues. The center promotes civic engagement through the Civic Leadership Collaborative by convening Arizona's leadership development organizations to advance the goal of building strong leaders in every community in the state. Please join me in welcoming Dawn Wallace, Vice President of the Arizona Center for Civic Leadership at the Flynn Foundation. Dawn oversees the foundation's statewide civic leadership program that prepares emerging and established leaders to enter all levels of public service. Dawn is a public policy expert who has advised governors and guided policy development in the Arizona legislature for the last 2 decades. Dawn?
Is Dawn Wallace. I'm with the Arizona Center for Civic Leadership at the Flynn Foundation. Thank you to Luigi, Arizona Capital Times, for putting together this morning's event. We would also like to thank our esteemed panelists, former Speaker Kirk Adams, former Representative Chad Campbell, Yavapai County Attorney LePolk, and Dr. Guthrie for being here with us. Public policy is rarely single-faceted, and as we will likely learn from our panelists, Proposition 207 is no exception. I'm sure we will hear how this question to the voters will have long-term impact to our systems of economy, education, and health, and ultimately how this issue impacts our state's current criminal justice reform efforts. The Arizona Center for Civic Leadership is largely known for the Flynn Brown Fellowship, which helps emerging and experienced leaders expand their knowledge, skills, and networks to address our state's long-term issues. While we are immensely proud of our 385 fellows who have participated in the Flynn Brown program over the last 10 years, we are also keenly aware that civic leadership is best matched with an informed and engaged electorate. To that end, we are proud to sponsor events today's Morning Scoop through our Center's Civic Education Initiative, CivX, to provide opportunities for Arizonans to educate themselves and engage on tough public policy issues, including those ideas that are ultimately decided at the ballot box. Our work is built on the belief that our state will be stronger with more Arizonans engaged more often and more deeply in our shared civic life, from informed voting to issue advocacy, to running for office, or to careers in public service. At the center, we believe that the exchange of many perspectives, particularly in discussion of complex public policy issues, is a value. Flynn Brown way, expectation for respect, civility, and the development of relations with those holding different ideologies. We remain committed to our original vision, to educate, inspire action, and build new generations of civic leaders. And through the work we do, and through all of the good work that our partners and colleagues do, the center is pursuing the mission of the Flynn Foundation to improve the quality of life in Arizona to benefit future generations. Thank you all for being a part of our mission. Luigi.
Thank you, Dawn. And thank you again to the Center for sponsoring this morning scoop. We have a great panel this morning. Joining us is Sheila Pope, who is the Yavapai County Attorney. She is currently serving her 5th term in this position. Ms. Pope received her bachelor's and law degrees from Arizona State University and was honored as an outstanding alumni in 2019. After completing a clerkship at the Arizona Supreme Court, she worked in the Arizona Attorney General's office for 11 years before moving to Prescott in 1994. There, she joined the Yavapai County Attorney's Office, where she specialized in the prosecution of felony crimes, including elder abuse, sexual offenses, and repeat felony offenders. In addition to overseeing a staff of 100 employees, she serves on the Arizona Human Trafficking Council and chairs both the Arizona Prosecuting Attorneys Advisory Council and the Arizona Criminal Justice Commission. Ms. Polk is chair and founding member of MAT Force, the Yavapai County Substance Abuse Coalition. Recently, she was appointed by Governor Doug Ducey to chair the statewide Arizona Substance Abuse Partnership. Ms. Polk this morning represents the No campaign. Sheila, thank you for joining us.
Good morning. It's my pleasure to be here.
Also joining us is Chad Campbell, who is the Senior Vice President for Arizona at Strategies 360. Mr. Campbell served for 8 years in the Arizona State Legislature, working on issues ranging from renewable energy to education to sustainable business practices, to free speech and to accessibility for the disabled. While in the House, Mr. Campbell served as Minority Leader. His work improved Arizona's tax code and increased the state's competitiveness while helping level the playing field for Arizona's small businesses and families. He has repeatedly been recognized for his economic development accomplishments. For example, he was named a Tech 10 legislator for 3 years by the Arizona Technology Council, a public policy champion by the Arizona Realtors Association, a champion of economic development by the Arizona Economic Development Practitioners, and an Eagle for Enterprise Award recipient from the Arizona Small Business Association. Prior to joining Arizona Strategies 360, he served as an executive vice president at the National Public Affairs and Strategic Communications firm. He's also an adjunct faculty member at Arizona State University, where he teaches a class on public policy development. Today, he represents the yes side of the campaign. Chad, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Also joining us is Kirk Adams. Kirk is a former Speaker of the Arizona House of Representatives, as well as former Chief of Staff to Governor Doug Ducey. He's currently president of, and Kirk, correct me if I'm mispronounced this, Concilium Consulting. Did I get that one right? Perfect. He was first elected to the legislature in 2006 and was elected as House Speaker 2 years later. He's an Aspen Institute Rodell Fellow and previously served as chairman of the Arizona Leadership Council for the National Federation of Independent Business. As Governor Doug Ducey's chief of staff for 4 years, he helped lead the governor's office through numerous opportunities and challenges, including tackling a $1 billion budget deficit, negotiating Proposition 123, and of course, funding a 20% teacher pay raise over a few years. He also worked on the unanimous passage of the Arizona Opioid Epidemic Act, as well as oversaw the governor's efforts to honor the late Senator John McCain during the memorial services hosted at the Arizona State Capitol. Kirk Adams has also worked extensively in the area of criminal justice. Kirk, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And finally, we have Dr. Dale Guthrie. Dr. Guthrie is a pediatrician based in Gilbert, a fourth-generation Arizona native. He graduated from Westwood High School in Mesa, then attended Mesa Community College before completing a mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in Central America. After returning from mission, he studied at Arizona State University and completed his medical education at the UACJ Institute of Biomedical Sciences in Ciudad Juarez, Mexico, finishing the program with clinical rotations in Arizona. He began pediatric residency at the Moses H. Cone Memorial Hospital in Greensboro, North Carolina, and returned home to Arizona to complete residency at the Phoenix Hospital's affiliated pediatric program at Maricopa Medical Center and at Phoenix Children's Hospital. He and Dr. Randy Leavitt started Gilbert Pediatrics in 1988. Dr. Guthrie, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
To our viewers and to our listeners, we do want you to engage by sending your questions via our chat room or via the Q&A room. Do send in those questions. We'll try to get to as many of them as we can toward the end of the program. Proposition 207, if approved by voters, would legalize the use of recreational marijuana for adults. That would be individuals over 21 years and older. It would impose a 16% tax on marijuana sales. The estimates vary, but the tax is expected to generate a significant amount of revenue, which will be deposited into the Smart and Safe Arizona Fund. The funds will be distributed this way: 33% to community colleges, 31.4% to local enforcement and fire departments, 25.4% to the state and local transportation programs, 10% to public health and criminal justice programs, and 0.2% to the Attorney General's Office for Enforcement. My first question is to Chad. Chad, how did you determine the distribution of the tax revenue? For example, education funding goes to community colleges and not to K-12 schools or to universities. What's the rationale behind these distributions?
Yeah, great question, Luigi. And first of all, thanks for hosting this morning, and thanks everybody for participating. Looking forward to this discussion. Simply put, the revenue generated from the sales of this product will be significant, but it wouldn't be enough to actually really help make the dent in K-12 funding that's been there for years, and same with universities. So we looked at the educational system that was most in need, that could actually be kind of quote unquote made whole by this money, and that was the community college system. The community college system has really been left unfunded in terms of state support for over a decade now, since the recession. They haven't gotten that money restored. And so by putting this money through K-12, it's about 33%, a third of the new revenue will go to community colleges. It'll actually make community colleges whole again. And that's a significant help for not just here in Maricopa County, but outside of Maricopa County in particular, in the smaller areas in Arizona that really depend on community colleges. So we looked at how we can make the most impact. And secondly, we also knew there was a proposition coming down the line to actually address K-12 funding. We knew that was going to be on the ballot, and we didn't want to confuse voters, so we really focused on community colleges.
Thank you, Chad. I want to go to County Attorney Sheila Polk. Ma'am, one of the arguments in favor of recreational marijuana is that it should be regulated like alcohol. The underlying assumption here is that adults can determine what is best for them. Both alcohol and marijuana, for example, pose health problems, but that choice, the choice to use either alcohol or marijuana should be left to adults and not to government. I want to get your take on this argument.
Well, Sharon, good morning again. First of all, the country and Arizona already has alcohol and tobacco as legal industries. What we know is that when you legalize an addictive product, far more people will use. The perception that it's risky behavior decreases, and the result is a lot of harm to our kids and to our roads. 11 states have now legalized marijuana. And what we know from looking at those 11 states is that youth use increases when you legalize this product. Excuse me. So legalization of marijuana is not simply a choice for an adult to use. There are negative consequences that we need to consider. Most important to me are our kids. Again, looking at the 11 states that have legalized, those 11 recreational states have the highest youth use rates in the country. And the problem when kids start using marijuana is that the brain is still developing. So the science tells us that kids who start using marijuana are much more likely to go on to use other drugs, and that the marijuana itself harms their brain development. It impairs their learning skills. Long-term use of marijuana when you start as an adolescent results in a significant decrease in IQ. And what I care about is that our kids have a bright future. Again, we know when you legalize marijuana, far more kids will use, far more kids start down that path of academic failure and start down that path of long-term challenges with addiction.
Before I go to Kirk Adams and Dr. Guthrie, Chad, I want to get your response to that.
Well, again, I want to point out this ballot measure is focused on allowing people 21 years of age and older to make the choice if they want to responsibly use this product. We have strong safeguards built into this ballot language that prevent the marketing of this product to children, require labeling, child-proof packaging. We actually ban the production of any form of edibles or other products that resemble animal shapes, cartoons, toys, etc., that may be attractive to kids. We probably set forth the strictest set of regulations in the entire country. And it's aimed at preventing children from getting their hands on this product and making sure also that the product that will be used by adults is safe and tested. All of the things that Ms. Polk talks about are actually symptoms of a black market. And that's the problem with the black market, is people get their hands on things they shouldn't. It's just like prohibition of alcohol back in the day. It didn't work. Prohibition of marijuana doesn't work. All it leads to is an unregulated, dangerous black market. We're going to replace that black market with a much safer, much more strictly regulated program that's going to make sure the product that is being used by people who choose to use it is safe. And at the same time, creating thousands of new jobs in communities across the state, including Ms. Polk's hometown, and generating hundreds of millions of dollars in new revenue for programs that all Arizonans care about.
Thank you, Chad. I want to go to Kirk. Kirk, which parts of this initiative, this ballot proposal, do you like most, and which parts give you the most concern?
Well, look, I don't think you can have a discussion about legalizing adult use marijuana without also analyzing its impact on the criminal justice system. And, in 2017, there were 3,418 individuals who were sentenced to the state correctional facility for simple drug possession. And I think that when you examine that, and by the way, that's a 142% increase in that number since 2000, obviously far outpacing population growth in our state, which has grown at roughly 30% in that same period of time. And so I think that this issue is far more complex than simply, should we legalize adult use marijuana or not? That is the main plot of this story and the reason why we are here today. But the subplot is the criminal justice system. And that subplot is no less significant. It's certainly no less significant, and even more so to those families and individuals that have been impacted by the existing marijuana laws. And when you think about it, Luigi, for just a minute, the most awesome power that the government has and the most fearful power is the power to restrict or to eliminate a person's individual freedom by sentencing them to the state correctional facility. And so I think as you look at this initiative and its impact specifically on criminal justice, there are really three questions that you have to ask yourself about the existing marijuana laws. First is, are they just? Is justice being served? The second is, are they working to their intended effect? And then the third is, what is the cost? And the cost is more than just dollars and cents and state budget impact and all that kind of stuff. What's the economic cost, as well as what's the human cost, the human toll that these laws, as they're currently on the books and as they are currently enforced, are having on individuals and families. And so as we look at this issue, I think it's much broader actually than should adults 21 or older be able to freely use marijuana.
I want to go to Dr. Godfrey. Sir, I guess the same question to you. Which parts of this ballot measure you like, and which parts of it are giving you the most concern?
Again, thanks for having me here. For me, it's just all about the kids. I've spent probably 25 years as the point person for the Arizona chapter, American Academy of Pediatrics, at trying to limit the use of tobacco, alcohol, and drugs for children in the state of Arizona. I spent a couple of years as president of that chapter, so I know the lay of the land. During that time that I was president of the chapter is when Colorado and Washington legalized, and my colleague, and we were very close to those colleagues. We were in the same district within the National American Academy of Pediatrics, so I know what they went through. And one of the things that Sheila, she gave my talk for me already, but one of the things that she touched on is that perception of risk is a huge motivator for youth and what they will act on, what they will do. And one of the statistics from Colorado was that even in the months between the election, when it passed and when the bill became law, youth use of marijuana in Colorado skyrocketed. And so why would that be? The dispensaries hadn't even opened up yet to where it was legal to sell to everybody over 21 for recreational use. It was because the youth perceived that risk was low. And when we do that, when adults vote for things, our kids and our patients see that and say, oh, the adults must all like this. It must be safe. Let me have some of that. The other issue I have is with advertising, and the billboards are going to go up there, and they're going to go up right next to schools, libraries, places where kids congregate, and they're going to see that. And again, perception of risk is going to go down, and more kids are going to use. But the health effects in kids that is exactly what I'm focused on.
And we're going to go into the details in a little bit, but I want to ask Chad an argument raised by critics. Of course, under the proposal, retail licenses are limited to 10% of the number of registered pharmacists in the state, which is about 130. And then an additional 26 licenses will be issued as part of the social equity program in this proposal. So you're looking at about 156 retail licenses. Critics say this is and I quote, blatant case of self-dealing, and that funders of Prop 207, which are the medical marijuana companies, are effectively creating an industry in which they have the monopoly. Your thoughts, sir?
Well, I'll tell you, if we had opened up the floodgates and just let licenses abound and everybody have a free shot at this, the critics would be saying, we weren't controlling this enough. This is an argument made by critics because they're looking for something to latch onto. What we're doing here is using the medical marijuana system as the foundation for this program and building off of it. And that's simply because the voters trust the medical marijuana program. They've seen it in action. They know it's regulated by DHS in a very effective manner, and they trust it, quite simply. And so we have trusted operators in that space who've proven that they can follow the laws, they know how to run this business, they comply with DHS. And so we want to let them hit the ground running so that you can get this product out there once it's legalized and start eliminating that black market immediately, which is what's not happening in California. And I think most people admit California has a few problems with their program. So we're learning from some of those mistakes we've seen in California. And I want to stress that this isn't a monopoly by any means. There's additional licenses that will be available from day one, as you pointed out. There will be additional license set aside for social equity purposes, as you pointed out. And this number of licenses will grow as the population grows, thus allowing more and more people to enter into this market as they wish and as they can prove that they have the professional capacity to run this type of business. But I can assure you, we did extensive testing and we had extensive conversations with people across the state, urban and rural. Every single person we talked to wanted this program to be legalized, but done so in a very pragmatic way and in a very smart and responsible way. And they look at this as a way to get that done. They know this will allow for recreational use, but it also allows for a common sense way to grow this industry in the market without open up the floodgates from day one.
I want to ask just a quick follow-up question before I go to the county attorney. It is true, however, that the bulk of the licenses will go to current holders of medical marijuana licenses. Is that correct?
Yeah, probably at the beginning they will. But again, they've proven they have the capacity and have proven they know how to actually comply with DHS standards and do this in a legal and responsible way. And so we want to make sure, again, that once we legalize this, people are going to want to buy this, the people who choose to do so. And so we want to have those operations up and running as quickly as possible because we do not want the wild, wild west scenario that we've seen in California. And I bet everybody on this panel agrees. We don't want Arizona to be like California in many respects, including in this law. And so we're taking this common sense approach that we use with medical marijuana and applying it to recreational adult use.
County Attorney Polk, your response, ma'am.
Yes, thank you for letting me chime in on this topic. First of all, if all Arizona wanted to do was to decriminalize or legalize marijuana, we could do that in a couple of pages. I do think there's some important criminal justice issues that Kirk raised that would merit further discussion in this conversation, but it's important for voters to understand that Proposition 207 is 17 pages. Under the Arizona Constitution, as written, it becomes law, and the legislature can't repeal it, and they can't change it. They can't fix the problems unless their amendments, quote, further the purpose. Proposition 207 is clearly self-dealing. It is written and funded by the big medical marijuana companies in Arizona. And just a little bit of history, Arizona passed medical marijuana in 2010. A number of businesses have been very successful. And so here we are, well, in 2016, they tried to legalize recreational, but here we are in 2020. And again, it's the big marijuana companies who have written and are funding to the tune of more than 3 million, Proposition 207, and its 17 pages of self-dealing. And just let me explain. For starters, yes, those companies who now have medical marijuana businesses in Arizona, they get a monopoly on the retail licenses. For the first 60 days, only those companies can apply. And the language of 207 says that the retail licenses shall be awarded to them. Proposition 207 allows those medical marijuana companies that get the retail licenses to transition from not-for-profit, which is what the Arizona Medical Marijuana Act requires, to for-profit operations, allows them to dispense with the requirement under the Medical Marijuana Act that they have medical directors in their facilities, and allows them unlimited growth, production, and sale of retail marijuana. It allows them to sell their recreational marijuana out of the same storefront as their medical marijuana. It guarantees them under this statute the right to advertise. It severely limits communities, localities' ability to opt out. So in other words, if you have a medical marijuana dispensary in your community, you can't say no to retail. And it is just chock full of self-dealing. Again, I want to make the point, if you want to legalize marijuana, you can do that without the 17 pages of self-dealing that are set out in Prop 207, which is funded by Big Marijuana here in Arizona.
Thank you. I want to give Chad, go ahead, sir. Just real
Yeah,
quick.
Luigi, if I can respond. First of all, let's be very clear. Ms. Polk has no intention of ever wanting to decriminalize marijuana in any capacity. She's one of the most aggressive and egregious prosecutors of marijuana-related crimes, which shouldn't be crimes in the first place, in the entire nation, let alone in Arizona. So let's put that aside. This is a red herring that she throws out there in these debates. And when it comes to 17 pages, if this were a one-page document, Ms. Polk would be complaining about how small this was and there wasn't enough information in the document. This document is 17 pages because most of these pages contain safety and standardized testing and restrictions on how we're going to market this product, make this product safe, and manage this program. It is built this way and it is this long because it's the safest program introduced in the entire country, plain and simple, period. And so again, that's why this document is as big as it is. And yes, this program or this ballot measure is funded by a lot of people in this industry, but quite frankly, I find it interesting that the opponents keep talking about business owners as being bad people when other business owners are fine. For some reason, they're trying to demonize certain business owners while allowing other ones to help prop up their campaigns. And I want to point out that in the past, Ms. Polk has taken money from opioid companies to fund her anti-cannabis activities. So I don't understand why she's okay with that drug and those companies that promote that drug, which I would say is much more egregious than any other drug out there, while trying to demonize the industry right now around this product that's going to be very safe and very responsibly introduced to the market here in Arizona.
Ms. Polk, I want to give you the opportunity to respond, Mom.
Thank you. It is true. I am opposed to the legalization. My point is that if voters want to legalize, they can do that without passing the 17 pages of self-dealing that constitute Proposition 207. But let me explain why I'm opposed to the legalization of marijuana. I have followed this issue throughout my career. There are now 11 states in the United States that have legalized recreational marijuana, and the evidence is clear. If you legalize recreational marijuana, far more of your kids start using and start down that path that leads to a future that is not very bright for them. I believe in building environments, and that as responsible adults, we should do everything we can to create communities where our kids can thrive and succeed. What we know out of Colorado, for example, is that more youth are using marijuana than ever before. And sadly, more minority youth are using. So the evidence from the 11 states shows that legalization is a failed experiment. More people use, not just kids, but across the board, more people use. The roads become more dangerous. Again, the evidence from the 11 states is that when you legalize recreational marijuana, you have far more stoned drivers on the road, far more traffic fatalities at the hands of a driver who tests positive for marijuana. That's why AAA has come out opposed to the legalization of marijuana. AAA has studied the 11 states that have legalized marijuana. Their single focus is safety on our roads. After studying the evidence, AAA has come out in opposition to the legalization of recreational marijuana. So I continue to look at the evidence. My focus is public safety, safety for our kids, safety for our communities, safety for those who are driving on our roads. The evidence is clear. Legalization creates less safe communities, less safe roads, and harms our kids. So yes, I am opposed to the legalization.
I want to go to Kirk. Proposition 207 allows individuals convicted of low-level marijuana charges to seal their criminal records, and giving them, the idea is to give them a better chance at getting a job or housing. Critics have argued that Arizona should address this issue separately. And I want to get Kirk's thoughts on this one. From your point of view, is this something that the legislature should tackle independently of this proposal?
It's a good question. And I've spent a fair amount of time in the legislative body. And the short answer is yes, the legislature should have addressed these issues. And the reason why they haven't is because over the years, the prosecutor lobby has opposed any changes to the status quo of the criminal justice code in Arizona. And those attempts have been thwarted along the way. Fundamentally, again, I think that this issue, this conversation, appropriately so, is revolving around should adult use be legalized or not and its various impacts. But the complexity must also include the impact on criminal justice. So if the argument is that the law as it is today is working, then I would like to personally see the evidence of that. In fact, the Pew Charitable Trust recently did a study to try to determine the effect of drug laws on addictions and illicit use of drugs, and they found no correlation between the existing drug laws and a reduction in illicit use or addiction. So I think, though, you need to take this sort of to a higher level and sort of ask ourselves a principled question. Is prison time, is serving a prison sentence the best method by which to treat an addiction if that individual has an addiction? I think the common sense answer to that would be no. And so when we talk about health and safety, one of the other things that we need to include in that is public health in the traditional sense. Is our society, is our community, are they healthier as a whole, including the negative impacts on the economy, the negative impacts on individuals and families, and the follow-on consequences of having a father, for example, incarcerated? What is the public health impact of the existing law? So yes, that's a long way to say yes, the legislature should have addressed these issues, but they have not.
County Attorney Polk, I want to get you a chance to respond to what Kirk Adams said, which is that the prosecutors in the state have fought hard against changes in our state statutes that would allow for or that would make allow for fewer people to actually go to jail as a result of, for example, marijuana possession.
You know, that's really not true. You know, I want voters, listeners, to understand Arizona's laws with respect to drug possession, because more than 20 years ago, Arizona transitioned to a treatment-first state when it comes to drug use and abuse. Under existing Arizona law right now, a person cannot be incarcerated until they have a third conviction, a third felony conviction for a drug offense. Now, there's an exception for methamphetamine. In 2006, the state legislature pulled out methamphetamine. But with respect to marijuana, heroin, all substances, including meth, what we do is we use the statute to put people into treatment. Again, until there is a third conviction, a person cannot be incarcerated. So the numbers that Kirk gave for who currently is in state prison for a drug offense, and by the way, his number was not marijuana offenses, it was drug offenses, but those offenders have to have had a third conviction before they could end up there. And frankly, many of those are plead down from a trafficking offense to a possession offense so that they're serving a little bit less time. In terms of people convicted of marijuana, less than 1/3 of 1% of the total prison population right now, as of the most recent report, are serving time on a marijuana offense. The bottom line is people are not being incarcerated and serving time for possession of marijuana. Instead, those individuals are being put into what we call our drug diversion programs. In Yavapai County, for example, first and second time drug offenders and some other offenders as well, we give them the option of a drug treatment program. Those who are successful, their charges are dismissed, so they don't have a record at all. But that's been how Arizona has treated drug offenders for more than the last 20 years, is to use the criminal justice system to encourage them to seek treatment. And I just want to point out the latest survey by the National Survey of Drug Use and Health, which is a national survey, they find that nearly 94% of people who suffer from substance abuse addiction issues, 94% don't think they need treatment. And that's why the criminal justice system has actually become the single largest provider of drug treatment in the nation. It's through our diversion programs where we connect people to services, to treatment, and then when they're successful, we dismiss charges and they get a clean record.
Kirk, I want to give you the opportunity to respond to some of the points that the county attorney has raised.
A very simple response is that treating drug addiction through the criminal justice system may be the most inefficient way from a taxpayer perspective or a human cost perspective. So if that's the reason why we are defending the existing treatment of criminal justice as it relates to drug laws, specifically personal use possession and marijuana as well, then the argument does not, I think, it's not persuasive. Since 2000, Arizona's prison population has grown by 60%. Our crime rate has also reduced, but so have other states in our neighborhood who've equally reduced their crime rate without the high rate of imprisonment. And to the extent that the existing drug laws and the way that they are prosecuted at the local level are impacting the costs associated with the state incarceration system, I think that's what policymakers need to be focused on.
Thank you, Kirk. I want to go to Dr. Guthrie. Sir, what are your primary concerns when children potentially will have access to marijuana?
The research shows, and American Academy of Pediatrics, AAP.org, has a great web page that cites numerous research studies. And it was a paper that was put together in 2015, but has been revisited since then. You can go to AAP.org and look it up. But what we worry about are the things that Sheila mentioned before, and that is that more will use. And if you use 2 or 3 times a week, starting in your teen years, by the time you're in your young adult years, IQ can go down 8 points. And also, there's MRI evidence of actually brain changes that you can see. And so, and a lot of other things that you could read if you go there. There is a reason. I mean, I'm not an expert at the criminal justice issues, but this isn't the best way to solve that. I mean, just because prosecutors are supposedly opposed to laws that would govern this, the legislature needs to have courage and take care of the criminal justice issues if they occur, but they shouldn't. We shouldn't solve that problem on the back of children who will be damaged by this. There is a reason why the American Medical Association, the Arizona Medical Association, the American Academy of Pediatrics, the Arizona chapter of the American Academy of Pediatrics, all are against this, adamantly against 207.
Chad, I want to get your response to that.
Yeah, again, I would say quite simply, the most dangerous thing we could do for our kids is continue to let a black market flourish here in Arizona. We're talking about all of these things we're talking about that Dr. Guthrie and Sheila Polk are talking about are symptoms of a black market. The best way to protect our children is to make sure we actually put in place a regulated program that, as we do in our ballot measure, puts on the product child-proof labeling, or child-proof packaging, labeling, banning advertising towards kids, putting money into programs that will help educate and make the public aware of what the risk of use of this product is. All of this stuff equates to a safer community. The worst way we can try to protect our kids is by doing nothing and letting this black market continue. Prohibition doesn't work in anything. And if we were to sit here and talk about all of the things that are potentially dangerous to children in this world that happen on a daily basis, including cell phone use. Are we talking about banning cell phones because they're dangerous for kids and they change their minds? No, you have to manage them properly. Fast food, alcohol, tobacco, soda. I could go on the list of things our kids should not be getting their hands on. And they don't if we regulate them properly and have parents doing their job. And that's what this is all about. It's about this smart and safe way to make this program the most effective and safest possible introduction of legalized adult use in the country, while also generating hundreds of millions of dollars for the state. But prohibition doesn't work. It's been proven time and time again. It's proven right now. And so again, these arguments are really, I mean, I hate to say it, but they're fear mongering. That's what it comes down to. And the CDC's latest report proves this. The CDC's latest report on youth drug use shows that over the past 10 years, during the time frame when states have been legalizing adult use marijuana across the country, youth use of marijuana has not increased at all, and in some cases has been actually going down. That's the latest CDC numbers as of August of this year. So these numbers they're throwing out there are quite frankly not true. They're taking very, very small cases and very, very small populations and manipulating data to apply it to the larger population, and that is not valid scientific data.
Dr. Guthrie, I want to get your response to that. I see you saw you shaking your head a couple seconds ago.
I don't want to be disrespectful. I shouldn't have shaken my head. I apologize. We have the data. We know what it does to kids. There are reasons why. Well, first of all, we shouldn't be solving this problem on the back of children and their futures. And there is data that shows that it has increased in those states that have legalized it. And to me, when I read it from the American Academy of Pediatrics website and those research studies, it's irrefutable. So to me, if you're going to solve this problem, do it at the legislature. Again, I'm not a legal expert, but I know what it's going to do to children. It's happened in other states. My colleagues in those states have told me they've seen it firsthand. They know what it's doing.
So I want to pull in County Attorney Polk on this issue, ma'am. So if I were to summarize, and Chad, correct me if I'm wrong in my summarizing here. One of the arguments you raise is that children already have access to, for example, other drugs or alcohol or other dangerous things. And so the idea then is this issue is best addressed, for example, by parents, not by government. And the response is to manage it well, not to prohibit it. Your take, ma'am.
Well, let me clarify, Luigi. What I'm saying is that it is actually best managed by putting in place a set of laws that regulate the use of that product, whatever it is. And that also does take responsible parents. It's a combination of both. But letting a black market, which has no testing of any product out there, which doesn't regulate the potency of it in any way, doesn't manage where and how it can be sold, is the worst possible thing you can do for not only children, but for everybody in the state. So my point is sound government policy with responsible parental guidance is the key to success in any type of management of children's access to anything. Again, be it fast food, cell phone use, watching TV, alcohol, whatever it may be.
Thank you. County Attorney, go ahead, ma'am.
I think it's important to look at the evidence from the 11 states that have already tried this failed experiment. Again, that evidence shows us that when you legalize recreational marijuana, youth perception of its harms decreases, supply increases, and that results in far more youth using. And I want to give you the latest study. This is the National Survey of Drug Use and Health. This is the gold standard when it comes to comparing drug use patterns and throughout the United States, state to state. It's been around for more than 50 years. They just released their findings on September 11th of 2020, just last month. Again, here's what they find. With recreational legalization of marijuana, use by kids ages 12 to 17 has increased by 14% between 2016 and 2019. California, Colorado, Massachusetts, and Nevada, all states that have recreational marijuana, have seen an increase in regular use by their kids, again, ages 12 to 17, between 2016 and 2018. This survey, again, it compares state to state. When they look at youth use in states that have not legalized recreational marijuana, they find that about 6.4% of youth are regular users. In states that have legalized recreational marijuana, 9.4% of their kids are regular users. Again, I ask you, look at a classroom and pick out 1 in 10 of each of these kids aged 12 to 17. 1 in 10 in recreational states becomes a regular user of marijuana. That is incredible harm that we are doing to those kids and to their future. And I want to add something. We typically talk about youth, high school, middle school kids. The National Survey of Drug Use and Health also surveys young adults ages 18 to 25. Most states that have recreational marijuana, they legalize it for ages 21 and over. But the survey looks at young adults ages 18 to 25. The national rate of use is 23%. In Colorado, one of the first states to legalize recreational marijuana, 37% of their young adults ages 18 to 25 are regular users of marijuana. That is really, really high. The brain, as Dr. Guthrie will tell you, is still developing until age 25. And yet in Colorado, 37% of that age group are regular users of recreational marijuana. This idea of prohibition works in the sense that it keeps use low. When you legalize, use goes up. That's the evidence from the 11 states that have done it. And I don't think Arizona should do that to our kids and to their future.
Oh, I want to get Chad's response real quick, but I want to go to Kirk. Kirk, I'll go back to you, Chad. Kirk, you have children, sir. Any of these arguments persuade you either way?
Look, yeah, I like a lot of parents, would be very concerned and very much watchful that my own children were not partaking of this substance as well as a number of other substances that I don't want them to partake of. My interest in this issue, as I've repeatedly said, is its impact on the criminal justice system and really on justice itself. And I think what makes this conversation, while it's enlightening, also a bit frustrating, is there still does not seem to appear to be a consensus developing around the need to defelonize personal possession of a drug like marijuana. Recently states like Oklahoma and Utah have done just that, recognizing the negative impact on people and society by the application of some of these laws. And so whether you support adult use marijuana or you oppose adult use marijuana, I'm hopeful that the debate and the conversation around Prop 207 will at least stir policymakers into addressing these underlying issues that are not only driving up state budget costs, but are having a human toll that goes on for generations. When you have a felony conviction for a simple possession charge, it affects your ability for employment and housing, potentially for the rest of your life. And I think that it is right for us to ask, is that justice? Are we serving justice when we have created that kind of system? And in my view, in my opinion, we could do a lot better than we are now.
Chad, just real quick, sir.
No, again, I just want to go back to the numbers and the data that the opposition keeps throwing out here. All of the data that they're referencing is being conducted for the most part by organizations that are biased or implicitly funded by biased organizations or funders. Again, if you want to look at a unbiased, credible source, look at the CDC on a national basis. Their data shows youth use has not gone up, and in some cases has been decreasing since legalization started in most of these states. And even in localized studies in Washington, Colorado, other states, there is no trend of increased youth use for marijuana, according to the CDC, which I will trust any day over some of these organizations that have biased funders on this issue.
Dr. Guthrie, you've heard a couple of statistics, some studies, some polling data. I guess I'll ask you the same question that I asked Kurt, which is, any one of these arguments persuade you away from your current position?
No, I again, for me, it's all about the kids, and I My current position is that that is the most important reason not to vote for 207. Now, the other issues are important, and I'm sympathetic to those, but they shouldn't be solved by, and they won't be solved by this initiative.
I want to go to public safety just real quick. I want to ask this question to the county attorney. Supporters argue that Proposition 207 frees up law enforcement to focus on real crime and hard drugs, and that it will also unclog the backlog of minor offenses that we have at our courts. Let me back up. Why is this argument not persuasive to you?
Because again, looking at the 11 states that have legalized recreational marijuana, the evidence is that the black market activity increases, that drug cartel activity increases. Take a look at California. Just last month, or within the last couple of months, they took down a major international drug cartel operation that was essentially hiding in plain sight. Colorado, the same thing. Colorado allows home grows, which Prop 207, by the way, does as well. So under Prop 207, individuals can grow up in a two adult household can grow up to 12 plants. That allows this black market activity to thrive. That's been the ticket in Colorado for the black market and drug cartels to operate in plain sight. Again, what we know in looking at the states that have legalized recreational marijuana, promised revenue falls far short of what's promised. Black market activity actually increases. I have colleagues in Colorado who tell me that they have had to form specialized drug task forces that deal only with marijuana because the illegal activity around marijuana has increased so dramatically since they legalized recreational marijuana. The evidence also tells us that for every dollar of revenue that a state brings in on a marijuana task, out of Colorado, for example, they are spending $4.50 to deal with all of those negative consequences from kids and school, hospitalizations and emergency room visits that are marijuana related, increased traffic fatalities, increased stoned drivers, a dramatic increase in the number of DUIs that law enforcement has to deal with. So again, I encourage listeners to look at the evidence from the 11 states that have done this. What you will see is that these promises, this narrative that somehow legal marijuana rights wrongs, just simply isn't true.
So I want to go to Chad. Chad, I'll give you the opportunity to respond, but also want to ask you this specific question. The no side argues that that legalization would put more impaired drivers on the road, and that, for example, we don't really have a way right now to test. We don't have breathalyzer for marijuana, for example. This question has been raised before. I want to get your thoughts on this one, but also I want to get your response to Ms. Polk.
Let me respond and then I'll answer that question, Luigi. Thank you. First of all, this whole argument about the home grow being this entryway for cartels, I have yet to talk to anybody in law enforcement or drug enforcement that can tell me about a cartel that's going to come in and make a living off of 6 plants in somebody's closet of their bedroom. So the next cartel that can operate in that capacity must be the most ingenious cartel on the planet. I'm pretty sure 6 plants in somebody's closet, though, is not going to lead to increased cartel activity in Phoenix, Arizona. So that argument, I can't understand that argument. It's been said now several times, and it's just out of left field to me. Secondly, I want to point out that if all of these states have passed marijuana are falling apart in this doomsday scenario that Ms. Polk talks about all the time, you would think they'd be trying to repeal these laws immediately, overturn them, and prohibit marijuana again. Guess what? That's not happening. Not a single state is pursuing prohibition of marijuana that is legalized, because unlike what Ms. Polk is trying to project here, they're making a lot of revenue. Their communities are safer, and they're doing much, much better since they legalized marijuana in a responsible way. And I guarantee you, many of the people that are opposing this proposition in a formal and public manner vacation in these states. I'm sure many people go to California that are on this team of Ms. Polk's and vacation there. So if it was as dangerous and out of control as they claim it is, I highly doubt they'd be going there and taking their kids there for a vacation. But anyways, going to the law enforcement part and the DUI aspect, This is the strongest set of DUI laws in the country once this measure is passed. We actually put language in here that will allow the legislature to further the intent by addressing DUI law enforcement and giving law enforcement additional tools as they come into being, as the technology evolves. But this argument that there is no breathalyzer or the equivalent of a breathalyzer for marijuana is another red herring. There are plenty of ways to test for impairment that law enforcement uses all of the time beyond a breathalyzer. And they use them for prescription drugs and other forms of impairment, field sobriety tests, all kinds of things. This law mirrors what is in place with the DUI laws currently, strengthens them in some ways. And like I said, it allows the legislature to further the intent as new technology will come online to give a more scientific basis for testing right on the spot. And that will happen. That's a very innovative way to approach DUI law. It's never been done in the country. And it really will make this the safest, most strictly regulated program in the nation.
And Ms. Polk, you were shaking your head there. Go ahead, ma'am. We only have we don't have a whole lot of time, but please respond.
Arizona currently has one of the strongest DUI laws in the nation. Prop 207 weakens our strong DUI laws. They do it by eliminating one of our provisions that provides for a bright line test, a bright line standard for marijuana impaired DUI. So it's simply false to say that Prop 207 will strengthen or create one of the strongest DUI laws in the nation. We currently have that right now. Prop 207 specifically eliminates that bright line test and weakens Arizona's DUI laws, will make our roads more dangerous, and will result in more impaired drivers on our roads, harming our citizens.
I want to get in just maybe one question from our audience, and this is from a mayor in one of our cities. And the question is that Prop 207 language states a locality may not enact any ordinance, regulation, or rule that is more restrictive than a comparable ordinance, regulation, or rule that applies to nonprofit medical marijuana dispensaries. If Prop 207 passes and we choose, meaning his city, choose not to allow home delivery for recreational marijuana, does that mean we have to eliminate it for medicinal marijuana? And at what point in time does that need to be done before we lose our right to make the change? I guess this would probably be a question for Chad.
Yeah, I'm not sure I understand that question exactly, but this sounds like it's a delivery question then, I guess.
Well, I guess the question is that if municipalities are not allowed to or come up with rules or ordinances that are more restrictive than what's in place elsewhere, and if a city then, right.
But beyond that, local governments can do whatever they want. We give local governments full control in here to manage how and when new operations can come online, how they can manage the sale of this product within their own markets or their own community, and we did that on purpose. We believe that mayor, city council members, those local electeds are really the most closely connected elected officials to their residents, and really their main responsibility is planning growth and use of land for their communities. So we gave them full control. If you do have a medical location already operating there, you can't get rid of that, though. Obviously, you can't be more restrictive than what's already in place. That was pretty much a common sense language put in the ballot measure.
So I'm going to give everybody just a couple seconds to kind of provide as a sort of a closing remark. I want to start with Kurt.
Me?
Yes, sir.
First off, Luigi, thank you for the opportunity to participate on this panel and to express some of my thoughts and opinions about the criminal justice system. I think that the bottom line that I would like folks who are watching and listening to understand is that the current status quo, the way that we treat, for example, marijuana possession, has societal costs, has budgetary costs, and that there is no scientific study or evidence that it's working the way that it was intended. And I think we'd be better off as a state if we address these issues. We'd be better off if we'd addressed them a long time ago, and this debate might look different today. Maybe we wouldn't even be having a debate about Prop 207, but it hasn't been done. And so policymakers and citizens, I think this is an issue that we all need to tackle very, very seriously, because the ongoing costs in a lack of employment, housing issues, and a correctional system that we now spend over $1 billion on every year, it's not sustainable. And so I'm hopeful that at the end of the day, at least we can have a productive movement towards addressing some of these deficiencies in our current laws.
Dr. Guthrie, go ahead, sir.
Just like to thank you for having me here. My concern is that this is not the way to solve those problems, and it's going to be solved. And if we do this, it's going to be solved on the back of the health of our kids. And I think the evidence is irrefutable. And anyway, thank you for having me on.
Chad, go ahead, sir.
Yeah, thanks, Luigi, and thank you, everybody, for this discussion this morning. I would wrap it up again by saying the most dangerous thing we could do in Arizona for kids, for adults, for everyone, is to continue to allow an unregulated black market to fully exist here. Prop 207, when passed, will actually begin to eliminate that black market, replace it with a much safer, much more regulated program that will create thousands of jobs across the state and generate hundreds of millions of dollars for community colleges, public safety, roads, public health and community programs, all of the things that Arizonans care about. And to the point about criminal justice, it'll do all that while also accomplishing the feat of saving millions of dollars in taxpayer money by stopping the needless arrest and incarceration of people who should never go to jail in the first place. There are far better ways to treat marijuana possession and use. There are far better ways to do it. States are proving that. And we are the last state with this draconian set of laws around marijuana. We need to modernize. We need to join the times. And it's why the Arizona Republic has endorsed this, and many other people have endorsed this Proposition 207. And it's why the soft poll that came out today, probably if you saw it this morning, it's leading by 20 points with the voters right now. It's supported by the public, and I hope everybody votes yes on 207. Thanks again.
Thank you, Chad. And finally, County Attorney, go ahead, ma'am.
Thank you. Arizona does not need Proposition 207 if all we want to do is legalize marijuana. That can be done without Proposition 207. Proposition 207, written and funded by Big Marijuana, is about creating a for-profit, very lucrative commercial industry where Big Marijuana gets rich while Arizonans pay the price. That price is more youth using, more youth suffering the harmful consequences of marijuana use. And that's why the Arizona Medical Association and other medical associations oppose Prop 207. That price is more impaired drivers on our roads and more fatalities at the hands of someone who tests positive for THC in their system. That's why AAA opposes legalization of recreational marijuana. That price is an increasingly impaired workforce, and that's why the Arizona Chamber of Commerce opposes Prop 207. That price also is an increase in black market and drug cartel activity. That's why law enforcement opposes it. And then finally, that promised revenue is not what is promised. In states that have legalized, we see that that revenue is a drop in the bucket when compared to the overall state general fund. Finally, voters need to understand if Prop 207 passes, we are stuck with all 17 pages. We cannot put this genie back in the bottle. And I would encourage voters to visit no207az.com for information, for links to all the studies that I've talked about, that Dr. Guthrie has talked about, and for a list of all of Arizona's leaders who oppose Prop 207. And I encourage voters to vote no. Thank you.
Thank you again, Kirk, Dr. Guthrie, Chad, and County Attorney. Thank you for your time this morning. I want to thank again the Arizona Center for Civic Leadership at the Flynn Foundation for sponsoring today's morning scoop. And to our viewers and our listeners, thank you for staying with us. I hope you learned something. Go out and vote and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.